Hello guys and welcome to this episode of Weltengeist. And this time we will do something a bit different by doing a Q&A video. To make it easier to watch, I've categorized the topics and timestamped the questions in the description below. And I want to thank everyone for joining this project. I have big plans for 2022 and I'm glad to share more insights on my world in the upcoming months with you. Thank you for your support and for watching, and let's start with questions about the world of Raja itself. How many names did you go through before settling on Weltengeist for both the soul and the entire project? Honestly, I cannot tell you exactly how many names I went through before settling down with Weltengeist, but I can tell you how I got the name in the first place. As I work in marketing for a living, I knew I would need a logo and something like a brand name to make the project appealing. I didn't have an idea for either, so I asked a logo designer if they had some creative input for me on what I can do for logo and icon, and we discussed some ideas and brainstormed about the story, because there's a whole story behind this world. So in this story there are three major forces that dictate the plot: Tanud, Arvenal and the Raja, three gods. Those three dots in the spiral animation in the beginning of every video actually have a meaning. All these three entities are connected by Weltengeist. This is basically how I came up with the idea of the logo and name, because I knew I needed a name for the project that would connect major plot points, and since Weltengeist isn't just a source of power for gods, magic and life itself, but also because Raja is the embodiment of Weltengeist, I choose this name. I first thought of an English name because I wanted to appeal to an English audience, yet these terms sounded very generic to me, like world spirit or spirit of the world, so they didn't seem right for my project, and that is why I began to translate it in German, because in German you can bash nouns together and they would make sense, exactly like Weltengeist, and that's the story. How many kingdoms, nations or empires exist in your world at the moment? Are they all detailed? This is the world, and as you can see, there's a lot of space. So to answer your question, there are many nations and I haven't developed every square meter of this world yet. So no, they are not all detailed. There are three nations that I basically know everything about: the Navurian Empire, the Renanian kingdoms and the Moss people. But there are few more concepts, like the people in the desert right here, some people living in the relatively isolated swamps, the people in the south right here, and maybe some pirate alliances there. Like I said, a lot of space for a lot of creativity. Are there any other continents, and is there maybe on their own continent another nation that could compete with Navuria? Yes, as you saw on the world map, and yes, there are competitors for the Navurian Empire in the military and the economy, for example the Renanian kingdoms. Are there other races than humans on Raja? Yes, there will be two: the Moss people that I just mentioned, and you can see them here. There's also the Mostelli, which I haven't mentioned much in the past videos, but play a major role in the story and the world. You can see them here. We will cover both races in future videos in detail. Is the Empire aware of other continents of Raja, and does it have the technology necessary for trips on the high seas? Yes and yes, but they are not interested in exploring and colonizing the eastern continent yet. There are probably a few adventurers that have some expeditions going on and some brave merchants that bring in exotic spices and goods. But as the Navurian conquest is going on in the north, the government finds these fantastic stories as simply stories, rather than fact in the face of more pressing matters. Not to mention that there is no lack of land or resources in Navuria that would justify the expansion to the east just yet. And as Navurians have similar marine technology to the Polynesians, they are able to travel large distances over open water. I read a theory that Polynesians back in the day were such great seafaring culture that they might have had contact with the Incas in South America, and I really liked the theory and adapted it to Navuria. So there might be some brave adventurers telling stories of new lands with new people, but who are probably not taken seriously at the moment. But maybe the other continent is also exploring Navuria and is more technology advanced than the Navurians think, who knows? Do the other states in Raja share the beliefs of the Navurians? The most people have similar beliefs, since they worship the same goddess, but in another way. Besides, there is no larger nation that is following the Navurian beliefs except Navurian influenced kingdoms. As the expansion of Navuria is ongoing, religion is a big part, and so there are a lot of missionaries and other nations that spread their religion more and more. But the Renans, for example, have a completely different belief system than the Navurians. What time period on Earth is the technological level of Raja? I really don't like to pinpoint the technology level to a certain era in our world, but it is similar to the late Bronze Age and medieval times. Yet I don't distinguish it too hard, meaning if I want a tech that is probably a bit later in our world, I can probably justify it. But yes, late Bronze Age is probably fitting, as a big inspiration is the Roman Empire and other ancient civilizations. Is the religion of the Golden Sun the true religion, or is it left mysterious as to how the world is created? Every religion has true parts, and every religion interprets them as it fits. So no, there is no one true religion. Every religion probably thinks it is the true religion, yet none is telling the true story of how things came into being. Different creation myths, different interpretations, different cultures. If you would overlap all religions and take the true parts of everyone, you'd have the one religion though. There will be a video series about the real origin story of the universe though in the future. Do you want a fairly static world, or do you anticipate social and technological progress over time? Tough question. Probably both. I don't like the idea of writing a Raja with the typical tech and advancement that we made in our world. I really like the technology and social setting of ancient times because it is very fantastic and interesting to me. But I'm also the type of guy who just likes exploring. I don't see a world war in a Raja with tanks and airplanes and nukes. Yet maybe it will be interesting how the world will evolve after the events of the story, as it opens the door for technology that is more fantasy sci-fi like. We will see. It is really far in the future, so I cannot decide that yet. Does the Star Strider have magical powers? Can you give some more info about its biology? Yes, the Star Strider is one of the few beings that are capable of using kinetics to a certain degree. It uses it mostly to project illusions, to attract and confuse prey, as well as a defense mechanism. As I'm not really into speculative evolution, I don't have a reasonable biological article about the Star Strider. But the video I made about it is more a myth than biological fact. So in reality, the Star Strider isn't really eating stars. And the stars on its fur are not stars either. The stars are probably bioluminescent markings and used for sexual attraction. The stars in the myth that they are supposed to eat are a special kind of bird that also uses bioluminescence in the night to attract prey. Therefore, when the Star Strider is hunting these special birds at night, it looks like they are hunting the stars when you are standing on the floor of the jungle. If the eclipse in Navurian history is known as the darkest of times during the absence of the emperor and in religious festivities, it is seen as the goddess herself watching, blessing children, and in general something positive. Does it mean that the goddess was watching her children during the darkest of times? That is like the hardest question to answer, for real. The simple answer is yes. They probably named the eclipse because they still managed to survive. It is a period of struggle, brutal wars and death. In Navurian culture, the night would be something too extreme to name a period like this. To be fair, the Dark Ages would be very fitting as well, but I didn't want to copy it exactly from our world and tried to find something more connected to the sun itself. So yes, the eclipse probably means that they still felt protected by Avenal, although it describes one of the darkest periods. And if so, could it be that some people interpret the first eclipse as the goddess and emperor abandoning them and therefore keeping a grudge against both? Maybe a possible motive for the followers of Tanud. Good, and also another complicated question to answer. There are multiple periods when the God Emperor left Navuria by himself, but they never held a grudge against one of them, due to other reasons as well. It is more of a feeling of regret. Navurians would probably question themselves and what they did wrong that caused the Emperor to leave. Yet, the last period of the God Emperor leaving was the breeding place of the Tanud worshipping cult, that is correct. But you have to understand that most of the time the God Emperor isn't physically in Navuria. He has a telepathic connection with some of his highest subordinates. These were some awesome questions about the world itself, and the last two really got me thinking, so thank you very much. We will move on with questions that were more aimed at myself and my personal way of world building. When, why and how did you get into world building, and how long have you been working on the Raja? Pause the video, grab something to drink, I will tell you my story now. I'm not sure how old you are, but I'm 28, and back in the days when I was like 12, 13, I waited so long for a game to be released, and that game was Spore. I'm sure a lot of you loved that game as well, and I don't have to tell you that Spore is very inspiring for a kid with a lot of imagination like me back in the days. And so I started to create my own species, own civilizations, and so on and so on. Something that is now the standard in the gaming industry was relatively new back then. It was sharing your creations with other people over the internet. And now we come to the interesting part. I found a fan board or forum back then where you could share your individual stories and experience about your worlds with other players. It didn't take a long time until some users proposed to make an online pen and paper game out of the settings we all created. And so my journey started. We created a fictional map in GIMP, placed our nations where we wanted, and interacted with the other nations on a world map. It was like a 4x strategy game, but in the form of text posts in an online forum. Crazy. Looking back at it, it is a really crazy idea. I probably played and wrote like that until I was like 14, 15, maybe 16. When I was one of the most active users, there were thousands of posts. That was the time when things got kinda boring and a bunch of selected users choose to play in a new setting. One of them was a really talented writer and world builder who prepared new settings for us to play in. It was more classical D&D setting than what we did before, so I got into that as well, made unique characters, wrote unique stories in unique worlds. That probably continued until I was like 17 or 18, when life got between me and the others and we closed the project. Looking back at this didn't only give me the ability to write interesting characters and story arcs, but also give me the skills to dive into fictional worlds and make them believable. After this journey, I really didn't actively world build for about like 5 years, to be honest. I always had my own story idea and world in my mind since back then when I was 14, but I never wrote anything down. Only until I was like 24 or 25 I discovered the world building community on Reddit and suddenly had the name for the things that I did as a teenager. With some Google and guides I finally had the framework to bring my ideas to paper and just started by fleshing out my thoughts and world, and yeah, now we are here with over 1000 people watching videos about my fictional world. It's just crazy looking back, although 1000 isn't really a lot of YouTube, it means a lot to me. And yeah, that's basically the story of my world building career. What is the purpose of this project? Are you planning on creating an RPG or book? If yes, where can I read it? You cannot read anything yet, sadly, but the main purpose is a book series that I will write sometime in the future. Another medium that I really like is comics. Maybe I prefer graphic novels instead of books because I love visual storytelling. But writing a book is something I can do myself, yet as I am not an artist I would need the financial funds to hire a talented illustrator for the comic books. Maybe sometime in the future I will launch a Kickstarter campaign and present my project idea to get enough money for the first comic issue. That is nothing that will happen too soon though. How are you liking the channel's development so far? I am really happy. With Boris the artist, I found someone who is really reliable, fast and skilled, and therefore I can easily keep my schedule of releasing 1 to 2 videos a month, which is my goal for this year. I aim to do some more collaborations with other world building channels this year, but I haven't nothing planned yet. What is your favorite part about world building? I can also tell you what my least favorite parts are: cornlanging and speculative evolution. So yes, I never researched these both topics intensively, so it isn't really fun for me. What I really like is fleshing out civilizations, myths, religions, and also wars, as well as other historical events with important characters. How do you decide what parts of your world building to present on YouTube, and what's your favorite part of your creation so far? As I mentioned before, I work in marketing. Why is that important here? Because the process of deciding what videos to make depends on 2 questions. Number 1, will people be interested in the video topic? Number 2, am I interested in the video topic? To answer the first, I always do a bit of research also in terms of keywords. For example, the Create Fantasy Plants video is a video that gained a lot of views and brought in a lot of subscribers to my channel, because that is a video that is heavily optimized for Google and YouTube search. On the other hand, we have, for example, the video where I explain the concept of Weltengeist. No one will ever search for these terms, therefore it has less views. But for everyone who really wants to get behind the world I'm creating, this video is very important. So I always consider, how can I make interesting videos for new people to bring in? How can I make in-depth videos that are appealing for people who really want to get deep insight in the world? All of these fall under the same category. Do I want to make a video about this? I would never make a video just for subscribers or views. This is my creative hobby, my creative endeavor, and I like to inspire people with my ideas. But making a very specific video about a very specific thing in my world, like an uninteresting event that happens in an uninteresting video, isn't satisfying for me nor the viewer. At the end of the day, people who are consuming YouTube videos want to be entertained or inspired. And so I keep that in mind and always ask myself if I would enjoy watching my videos. And that's basically the process. Where do you think up your world building ideas, like in the shower, going on a walk, or somewhere else? To be honest, everywhere. I'm not thinking about the world all the time or forcing myself to be creative. When I have a thing that I want to world build, I just go on with my day and tend to ask myself questions from time to time when I have free brain space. Like, hey, if this and that happened to this character, what would be the consequences? And I just go on from there. The more basic things you have already created, the easier it gets, as you can just connect the dots. Also, I take a lot of notes on my smartphone when I have a good idea. That's probably the most important thing. Are you the type of world builder who makes lots of different worlds, or do you focus on one world? As I'm focusing on writing a book for the world of Raja, I'm focusing on just the one world. I don't have anything more than rough concepts and ideas for other projects. In the future I could make a video, or maybe 2, about some other ideas that I have, maybe based on a prompt or something. What real world cultures do you find interesting? Draw world building inspiration from? What are your sources of inspiration for the civilizations of Raja, including the Navurians? This really depends on the situation. For the Navurian Empire, I had the idea of the empire being very organized and structured, and therefore I decided to make the society more like something like the Roman Empire, and not like, let's say, the Mongol Empire. But I also looked at the geography. Navuria is based in a tropical climate, which is why I looked at ancient Indian, Southeast Asian and Mesoamerican cultures to get inspired. For the Renanian, who live in the steppes more in the north, I looked at Mongols and Huns, for example. Is there any rule you follow when designing clothing, or do you just base it off what looks cool? They kind of have to be realistic, or let's say they have to look believable. Wearing a fur coat in the desert is nothing I'm a fan of, and a barbarian fighting naked against ice bears is also nothing I like. Things should fit to the climate, biosphere and geography. If you don't have animals whose fur you can wear, don't design clothes with a fur, for example. This is one of the reasons why I invented the popful fruit, because I didn't want to say, hey, Yeah, Navuria just uses cotton as a resource for cloth production. That is probably why people like the poplar fruit that much, because it is something really ordinary made interesting with a twist. And yeah, that's the process of designing clothings and stuff like that. How much does it cost to have artists illustrate your videos? It really depends obviously on the style, complexity and quantity of scenes. Usually it's like $100 to $200 per video. I paid more and I paid less in the past, and also lost a lot of money in the process of finding good artists. I am very satisfied right now and hope we can grow the project like this together in the next months or hopefully years. That was the last question for this episode. I didn't expect the video to be that long, but thanks for the interesting questions, and if you have more questions, just let me know in the comments or the Discord server. See you soon, Weltengeist, bye bye.